All right, welcome everyone. I'm Troy Schmidt, and this is our month of missions that we have every February. And we get to pick and choose a lot of different ministries that we can help out this year. And our desire is to help with missions as people go out on mission trips. But also we find areas that we find particularly intriguing, or in this case, someone that we know. And the fire that was out in Pacific Palisades meant a lot to me. I'm spent a lot of time in California. My wife is from California. In fact, as we're recording, my wife is in California. And the fires out there have devastated so much. And so when I heard Pacific Palisades, I immediately thought of our friends, the Thorsons. And the Thorsons attend Calvary Church in the Pacific Palisades. And who we have with us right now is the pastor of that, Justin Anderson. Justin, thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much, Pastor Troy.
What is the impact been of these fires on your church and the community?
Yeah, it's significant. I mean, it's honestly still hard to wrap my head around all of it. It's just really pure devastation. We have had almost 200 families in our community, just between the school and the church, lose their homes to the fire, and most of their worldly possessions along with it. 80 to 90%, it's hard to get exact numbers, but 80 to 90% of our people have been evacuated and have not been able to return to their homes. And then our sanctuary burned pretty significantly. The roof burned and about half of it burned down, and then the sprinklers caused a crazy amount of water damage. So it's really significant.
How long has that church been in the Pacific Palisades?
77 years.
Wow. And How long have you been a pastor at that church?
1 month.
Oh, well,
I was hired on December 17th, and I was in the middle of my very first staff meeting, my first day in the office, when we got evacuated for the fires. So it's been a whirlwind.
You know, you see this devastation, and what we see, you know, in news outlets and everything is almost complete and total. It just looks like, I don't know, Armageddon comes to mind when I look at it. Is that a fair comparison in what we're seeing in the pictures out here?
Yeah, and it's hard. You know, it's the first time I've ever been in a disaster like this. You know, it's always been something that I've seen on the news and seems far away and different. But man, walking through it, it's just genuinely hard to wrap your head around. It looks like you're watching a movie, but you're in it. The first time I was able to get back to the church, I actually had to sneak through a couple of police barricades to do it, just to try to get an assessment of what had happened. And I stepped in kind of a smoldering fire that was still ongoing, that just was underneath the surface of some brush. And so it truly is hard to truly imagine what level of devastation. It's just apocalyptic.
Mm. What do you hope will come out of this? I know there's a lot of questions. Why would this happen? And, you know, we'll let the authorities figure all that kind of stuff out. But in a spiritual significance, what do you hope will happen with your church as a result of this rebuilding process?
Yeah. Well, the Palisades, as people may know now, is historically a really wealthy and nice area. And the temptation of wealth is always that it can provide for you the protection and the provision that it claims it can. And it's tempting to believe it. And so a moment like this, where all that stuff gets stripped away, and it doesn't matter how wealthy you were, the fire doesn't care. I'm hopeful that it will open our people's eyes, and the broader people in the Palisades' eyes, to their vulnerability and the dependence that they have on God. Ultimately, that is the only thing that can protect and provide for them. And so I'm hoping that people who otherwise feel pretty safe and secure will maybe see their need, and God will use that to draw them to himself.
Well, we would certainly hope that it would bring spiritual revival in so many places, especially at your church. Obviously, you were the right man at the right time. It was called by God. I'm sure you're wondering why also you were called at this time. But I'm assuming you're going to be having all the gifts that you need, that God has equipped you with at such a time as this.
Well, what's remarkable about this, Pastor Troy, is I've been a church planter for 20 years. And one of the significant lines of questioning during my interview process was, this is a 75-year-old church that's well established, and what's that going to be like for you and as a church planner? And I told him at the time, I said, I don't know. Like, I trust God, and we'll figure it out. And then week one, we're a church plant. We're setting up and tearing down in somebody else's facility, and we're, bootstrapping it day to day. And so it's hard not to see God's providence in this whole thing.
Wow. Well, it's certainly in the rebuilding process. You are rebuilding a new church. And one of the people that are going to be helping with that rebuilding process are former members of our church, Eric and Tracy Thorson. And I have with me right now, Eric. Eric, when you heard news of this fire, I know you were shocked. The first thing I thought when I heard Pacific Palisades was the Thorsons, because I've been to your house. I know about your house is located right there. Where were you when you heard about the fire that was happening?
Yeah, we were actually out of town. We were skiing up at Mammoth, and felt so frightened, just so helpless, because we live just above the church, and we've been there for about 25 years, which is in an area which is called the Highlands, which is very close to where the fire started on that Tuesday.
Wow. And let's just let everyone know, when you got to your house, or you found out about your house, have you been to your house yet?
We have. It is standing, and we are so fortunate. All around us, just 360 degrees is just utter destruction. But our neighborhood, which is in what's called the Lower Highlands, just above Calvary Church, is standing. And then we first got up there last Tuesday. It's a big process to get up, just with the police escorts, but we got up. There's some smoke damage, but the house is standing, fortunately.
Wow. Great news. Thank God. As you look at the neighborhood, how important do you think the church is going to be now that this fire has happened?
So important. Okay, just to share first a little bit of my background with Windermere, maybe, and then I'll tie it in to the church here. We were very active during the 90s at Windermere. We were members for 11 years. We remember just our time at Windermere so fondly. It was during what I'll call my strongest formative years in terms of my Christian growth. We were at the time just part of the young married group. You wouldn't know that by looking at me now, but we were part of it. And then we met some dear friends like Troy and the Lewises and many others. And then we moved out here in 2000. And one of the first things we did was that we joined Calvary. It had some similarities to just what we enjoyed at Windermere. It had a school where our kids went to the school through 8th grade. And it's a core part of our community, of our friendships. So we look forward to just to getting back as a community.
The impact, financially is just overwhelming to understand. When you're talking to those neighbors and those friends, what's the impact on them emotionally, spiritually?
So tough. With just people are in a state of shock. There are just many who have lost everything. They had to run out with just the clothes on their back, literally. And they're just in shock right now. And we have several people who are within our community who are house rich, but in terms of liquid assets, not so much. With the insurance processes slow, everyone's scrambling now just to get housing, which is very fluid. We are very fortunate. We have some temporary housing, and we're looking at the next step for the next several months. But, others are scrambling, and it's just not easy.
Well, the rebuilding process, I know, for the church is important. We're going to try to raise some money for that. But we know there's a lot of rebuilding that needs to go on in people's lives, in their hearts. But hopefully there is a real revival that happens as a result of this in the Pacific Palisades. Thank you, Eric, for...
Yeah, I was just going to jump in. I think there will be, Troy, and then we have been meeting the last 2 Sundays at a church that has kindly, very kindly, has given their space in Santa Monica nearby. But I think you're right, and it's just so touching that people, right now at least, they have a very different perspective, just Christians, non-Christians, loving, helping, just reaching out. And I think those that have their homes like us, you ask why, and it's so we can serve. I just can't think of any other reason why, but I think it will change hearts and minds. I'm very confident of that. And with Justin, as he shared, he just started. This was certainly not part of his 90-day plan when he started as a pastor, but he's been such a godsend. And I really feel very positively about the fact that we will change lives in the Palisades, and there'll be more people that will be coming to Christ because of this.
Well, as I said to him, I know he's the right pastor there at the right time, and you are definitely the right family to be there supporting him and being a part of all that through this rebuilding process. Thank you, Eric, for joining us. Give our love to Tracy, and we'll talk to you soon.
Well, thank you, Troy.